because you can't go walking around Victorian London in skins. You'll frighten the horses. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we've got not one but two stories, as we've got the prequel story, The Diary of River Song, The Talons of Greel by Paul Morris. And we also have, but I don't own it, the Fourth Doctor TV adventure, The Talons of Weng-Chiang, written by Robert Holmes and directed by David Maloney. This was considered a huge story, and obviously it got a prequel. But I'm going to have to take the scarf off for this because we got to start this off by talking about the elephant in the room. The Talons of Weng-Chiang has very racial depictions of Chinese people, of Asian descent. And a lot of people have been... A lot of this story is one of the most praised Doctor Who stories. Everybody I know absolutely loves this adventure. The depiction that they give about Asian people, that they are the scum of villainy, and that they take the white women and stuff like that, it's just plain wrong. And a lot of people defend it by saying, oh, it's of the time. And I personally don't agree with that. Sure, the story is set in Victorian London, and racial slurs like these would be acceptable in those times in terms of the culture. However, when the Doctor is not only not defending any Asian people, but is actively using these racial slurs, it is unacceptable. And when you're defending it and you're saying that, oh, it's just for the times, you can't really defend it like that. In 2020, Doctor Who entered BritBox, a streaming service. All of Classic Who that currently exists is on there. And there was a bit of controversy when the Talons of Weng-Chiang I believe was taken off for a little bit. And when it returned, it had a bit at the start saying, warning, this might be offensive, this has old racial slurs and stuff like that. And a lot of people kicked off saying how dare they, it's of the time, stop being politically correct. And I know it's not cool to be the one who's in the politically correct category, but it does do harm for people, and I don't think we should stop people from watching The Talons of Weng-Chiang. I mean, it's a lot of people's favourite story, and I'll get my opinions onto it later on in the video, but you can't go, because it's a good story, it's justified for doing some pretty messed up stuff, like using racial slurs, and in the story justifying those slurs. So I think what BritBox did was 100% in the right, showing the story, taking it off for a bit, then putting it back with the warning sign at the start, because we need to let our younger viewers, younger people who may not know about these racial slurs and why they're so bad and wrong, we need to teach them that this, though being a good story, this element isn't a part of what makes this story so good, and we need to help younger people understand that this is wrong. So there you go, I've got that off my chest. So should we get back onto the video? So let's kick this off with the prequel, The Diary of River Song story, The Talons of Greel. This is the conclusion of Volume 6 of the River Song Diaries, which I have right here. which was a series of prequel stories to beloved Doctor Who adventures. However, unlike Volume 4, this didn't have a story arc. Each story was completely self-contained, with the exception of it being a prequel story, of course. And this is the official Big Finish cover. If you've been watching these series, you know that I make DVD covers. So that's the box I've got it in. That's the spine, if anyone's interested. The Doctor doesn't appear in it, so it's the TARDIS today. That's the back, if anyone's interested. And just to go on the inside, it comes with a bonus disc. And then that's the actual story to that. Pretty cool. So the story sees River Song in Victorian London, and she introduces herself to Henry Gordon Jago, a beloved Doctor Who character who appeared in The Talons of Weng-Chiang and would later go on to have his own spin-off. Now this story acts as a prequel to not only The Talons of Weng-Chiang, but to said spin-off. They even use the Django and Lightfoot theme at the end of the story, which I just... brilliant. So it kind of works as a River Song Jago crossover. And River Song gets the impression that there is something evil here, something lurking in the basement, and obviously we know that it is Weng-Chiang, the ancient god of an ancient Chinese god, and along with it, one of Jago's circus, one of his acts in his on his theatre is Mr. Chiang. Here actually played by an Asian actor, but I can't remember his name. I do apologise. That sounds really bad. He does a fantastic job here, but viewing this story as a prequel is a bit strange because a lot of it doesn't actually work in terms of the logistics between this story and that. For example, for those of you who have seen the story, it is revealed that Weng-Chiang is actually this guy called Greel, who's a time traveller using crude time travel technology. I think they say he's the first human to time travel, but I could be wrong. And he goes back in time in this cabinet and he tricks a group of people that he's the Chinese god Weng-Chiang in Peking. And this story kind of, I can't remember if they say it outright or just implies it, that that Chiang already knows that he is Greel, which doesn't work at all because in Weng-Chiang he disguises himself as Weng-Chiang to make Chiang worship him and believe him. So that doesn't really work. And another thing as well is that they give Chiang a love interest, and he's not 100% committed like he is in Weng-Chiang. I personally actually like this element. It gives him a little bit more character and a little bit more depth, even if it doesn't really work in terms of it being a prequel story. Now, a thing to note as well in this story is that River Song is hardly in it, I find. The majority of the story has Jago helping this other girl out to try and get her act out onto his theatre. She does the can-can, a Moulin Rouge, if you will. And Jago originally turns her down, thinking that she's just her act might be a bit too vulgar for Victorian England. However, when Chiang hears that, when Chiang tells Jago that there's a guy called Greel who will pay for a lot of money to get a lot of female acts in. Jago then helps her, and then there's a mystery of the whole... There's a mystery going around then of young women being kidnapped and captured into Greel's experiments, as he's, because of this time traveling crudeness, his body is decaying, and to recover he needs young females. Now, this story does something I really like. It actually explains a plot element that was a bit part of the bad elements of Weng-Chiang. Because in that story, they never explain why it had to be young females and not just young people in general. But here they do actually explain, as Chang actually asks, why can't we use just young people? Why does it always have to be female? It's getting the attention of the police. So basically it's implying that he's Jack the Ripper. But Greel tells him that no, it's got to be young females because of some scientific mumbo-jumbo. It sounds a bit stupid, but I think it does work in helping Weng-Chiang have a much more grounded sensibility. So River Song is investigating, and she's helping one of the girls walk back home. However, they're attacked by I can't remember if they get attacked by Mr. Sin, a puppet doll that comes to life. We'll get into him in the Talons of Weng-Chiang a bit more, because I can't remember much about him in this story. But another servant of Greel is a monkey with a fez. Yes, you heard that right. A monkey with a fez. But not just any fez. It's a cyborg enhancing fez that turns the monkey under Greel's power. Which I just find really just hilarious. And he kidnaps the girl, and the girl gets absorbed by... I think, or she dies, I can't remember. And River Song basically is up to investigate, and she gets the help of Jago to basically hunt around for Greel and Chan. And before, River Song was trying to get into this place, because she was trying to get into the basement where Greel was working at, by telling Jago that she's one of the acts, and she can do anything. And Jago says, again, turns her down originally, but because of Greel's offer, who wants more women, he takes River Song, and because she said she can do anything, and her name is River Song, he thought that that she was a singer. And we get a really, really great moment where River Song and Jago are singing. Yes, there's a musical number with Alex Kingston and what's the guy who plays Henry Gordon Jago? Oh, I can't remember his name. Hold on. What? It doesn't say. It does not say. Christopher. I can't. Is it Christopher Benjamin? Or could that be Lightfoot? I can't remember. I do apologise. So yeah, that's a really fun moment, and I like when River Song abandons him. And there's also a lot of references to her backstory with even her name Melody Pond being mentioned, which kind of ruins the twist if you watch these in chronological order, which I'm doing for some reason. There's also mentions of Sutek on Mars, and yeah, just a really great moment. It's on YouTube. Go look it up. It's just fantastic. Alex Kingston's got a really good voice. But anyway, she goes into the basin to try and take down Greel, but Greel realizes that she is some sort of time agent, and she's got there because of a time machine. She has a vortex manipulator, so he tries to get her to try and take her back into the future, as she is supposedly a time agent. which has always confused me. How does he know about time agents if from his point of view, he's the first time traveller? Don't know. But yeah, and River and him kind of have a battle, and River Song escapes and gets away, and they kind of get justice for the young woman at the start, as another character, her roommate, was about to be sacrificed to Weng-Chiang, but River Song saved her and she moved away. And this character just so happens to be the love interest of Chiang, because originally they were from Paris. When they went to Paris, Chiang and Greel, they went to Paris, and she was going to be sacrificed, but Chiang fell in love with her. And Greel, after all of this business with River Song and Jago, plans to sacrifice her anyway, and Chiang basically begs his god to not kill her. But River saves the day, and she goes out to live her life back somewhere else, which is a shame because she was going to be an act for Jago, and Jago disappointed about it. And at the end of the story, we hear the TARDIS and River Song saying, "That's my cue to leave." It doesn't really match up with the start of Talons of Weng-Chiang, because the story implies that Jago could hear the TARDIS and they were miles off. So the story, at least the ending of it, takes place before the TARDIS arrives, but after the credits roll. That's the only explanation I can think of. So, the Talons of Greel. I really had a blast with this story, though the fact that it's a heavy prequel to Talons of Weng-Chiang, and it should have just been called Talons of Weng-Chiang Episode 0. I think that would have been a much better title. But overall, it's a really great story. I had a lot of blast. Let's get Volume 6 out. Volume 6 is a lot better than Volume 4, in my opinion. I like how the stories are more self-contained. There's no running story arc that ruins or tarnishes the single adventure. And the Talons of Greel is actually just a really great watch. Listen, so check that out. So now we get on to the main event, The Talons of Weng-Chiang, written by Robert Holmes and directed by David Maloney. David Maloney's final story for Doctor Who, which he left one hell of a legacy. And this story is just probably one of his best works. The atmosphere, the tension, the dark lighting, especially the bass. It's also important to note that this was Philip Hinchcliffe's final production as a Doctor Who producer. He got in some trouble earlier on in the season when they showed the Doctor almost dying, and the BBC decided to basically there's another show at the time that was shown a lot later for a more adult audience, which was having criticisms for feeling a little bit too kid-friendly, a bit too tame. So what the BBC did is that after the respective seasons had finished, they swapped the producers around, and so we had Graham Williams in the next season. I think it was Graham Williams. Yeah. But that's not important at the moment. So we've got the final story with Philip Hinchcliffe and the final story of David Maloney. And this story actually ends what a lot of people would consider the golden age of Doctor Who. Stories after this would be considered the Tom Baker Show era. I'll explain when I tackle the stories which a lot of people talk about the Tom Baker Show era. And it's a 6-part adventure because from now on in the 4th Doctor era, every finale would be a 6-parter, with the exception of his last season, which I really like this concept of 4-4-4-6. I think it's just a really cool thing. So the Doctor takes Leela to Victoria, England, as he wants to show her ancestors how they lived, how they enjoyed themselves. And he plans to take her to the theatre and seen Chiang's performance. A great magician, a great... he does a lot of tricks and stuff. But before that, they see a robbery take place. A murder take place as somebody gets killed, and a lot of assassins come up, and the Doctor and Leela fight them. But Leela captures one of them and takes him to the police. Before this scene, we get before the TARDIS arrives, we get scenes at Jago's theatre, and my God, the acting in this story is absolutely amazing. Jago is just a lot of laughs, a lot of fun, but he's talking to Chiang, here played by, I can't remember his name, something Bennett, who's actually an English actor in Yellowface, which, like I said, isn't acceptable. It doesn't, the story, despite it being good, doesn't justify, nothing justifies using Yellowface. It's just terrible. But somebody there, who is a white husband, the husband of one of the girls that Chiang had kidnapped, and he threatened to go to the police to investigate Chiang, and that's why he was murdered, and that's what the Doctor and Leela saw. And the story basically takes, the Doctor acts as Sherlock Holmes. He even wears a completely new costume, a one-off costume, which it's fun to note that this story is the only story that Tom Baker did where he never wore his scarf, not even for one scene. So let's talk about the influences of this story. As with a lot with Philip Hinchcliffe and the majority of Fourth Doctor stories, this story has a lot of influences with horror and horror novels and horror films and other influences. And I think the biggest one in this story is, of course, Phantom of the Opera. We have Greel, a masked villainly who haunts a theatre, kidnapping young women, taking them to the basement. And we also get a scene in which his face is revealed, and he's got like an ugly scarring on his face. So it's basically Doctor Who meets Phantom of the Opera. But there's also a lot of Sherlock influences. There's a character that we don't actually see named Mrs. Hudson. The Doctor befriends a actual doctor. I can't remember the specific name of the type of doctor he is. It's the ones that looks at dead people. And this is the introduction of Lightfoot, who's just a fantastic gentleman character. He's just so sweet and innocent, and I love his scenes with him and Leela. Of course, this character is inspired by Dr. Watson from the Sherlock Holmes novels. The Doctor wears a Sherlock Holmes-like costume. He even wears a deerstalker. He even says, "Elementary, my dear," referring to Lightfoot at this scene. Even though Sherlock Holmes, fun fact, never actually said "Elementary, my dear Watson" in the original novels by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, when it comes to Lightfoot and Leela, which is some of my favourite scenes in this story, in which Jago, being a gentleman, is shocked at Leela being being brought up as a savage, like she doesn't use knife and fork, she just picks up the meats and eats it. But what I really like about their scenes together is that in usual cases like this, the male gentleman character would be like, that's unacceptable, this is wrong. And slowly the story has them getting used, going through their way of living as well as the other character living as well, like George of the Jungle or Tarzan. But here Jago actually is helping Leela by doing stuff that she does as well, like thing right off the bat. There's a shock to it at first, but it's literally like a scene, and then other scenes, it's like, oh, she doesn't use knife and fork. I guess I will do it as well, to be kind, to show that she's not weird. Which just brilliant writing. Robert Holmes, fantastic writer. And this element with Leela is inspired by My Fair Lady, which is just a really cool, just why, but it works. It really does work. Too bad we didn't get Leela saying, "Move your bloody ass." That would have been really funny. But yeah. And we also get scenes in which they go down the sewers because they've tracked Weng-Chiang's base in the sewers somewhere. However, they get attacked by a giant rat. Now, despite the story being highly praised and the racial stuff about this story, one of the big memorable moments of this story is how terrible the rat is in this story. It's clearly like a giant puppet, and a lot of people say that it just takes them way out of the story. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, it does look horrible, and it does look really stupid, but I think David Maloney's directing, and the fact that he keeps it nice in the dark, and because it's in a tunnel, it keeps everything nice and claustrophobic. I think it actually does surprisingly work. It's just that the actual prop looks a bit ridiculous. But yeah, they explain later on that this thing is actually a test thing that Greel was doing to try and split gene pools and stuff. And yeah, okay, it works very well and stuff. So we get to the theatre scenes, and Chang is uses a puppet, Mr. Sin, which I talked about in the Talons of Greel. I just really love this puppet. It's played by Deep Roy. For those of you who don't know, he was the first actor to be in Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who. So props to him. Funnily enough, the second person to be in all three of them was Simon Pegg, who actually works alongside Deep Roy in the Star Trek movies. So that's really cool. And he does despite them having a very heavy makeup, he does a fantastic job here. And I like the voice that he gives him. But we'll get on to Mr. Sin later, because I really want to talk about Mr. Sin. And so Chan goes around kidnapping young women and giving them to Greel, and each time leads a little bit of clue so that the doctor could get closer to Chan. And like I said, the investigation really works. But what's important, I think, about why this story is so interesting is because there's a mystery on it, but it's not the main focus point. It's a part of it, the main part of it, but you also got other storylines like with Leela and Lightfoot, and you got Jago believing that the doctor's working for Scotland Yard, and so he helps with the doctor. And I really love how he's got a good heart and good tensions, but he's also a businessman, and he thinks like a businessman. And I like how later on in the story he confesses that he's a bit of a coward. He wants to be the good guy, but really deep down he's a coward, and he's afraid that he's going to let people down. If you watch the story with that in mind, it doesn't really add up, but that's really cool because it actually shows that he's stronger than he actually is. It shows that, like, for example, there's a scene in which he goes down with the basement to help the doctor out because he believes he's working for the Scotland Yard, and he wants to help him as much as possible. And it was only until after the doctor says it's safe, and after the doctor leaves, does Jago think business and that he can use this to have a tourist attraction for the theatre. So yeah, I really like his character. It's important to note as well that Jago and Lightfoot are such beloved characters, and I believe even back then they were planned to have a spin-off series, but that didn't happen until Big Finish did an audio series with them, which I believe is the most successful audio drama series of all time. I could be wrong. Second only to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It is very popular. It had like 8 or 9 volumes until tragically the guy who plays Lightfoot passed away. Yeah, but the series was really popular. What's really interesting, I find, to note is that them two characters never meet until part 5. So they only have 2 episodes with them together. But when they do meet together, the way they banter off each other, the way that they're both gentlemen, and how Jago's more like he's like a businessman who's more dramatic and stuff, and I think he thinks that he's a very important person. He thinks he's much more bigger than he actually is, and Jago, he's just a sweet young man who's doing the good because he can, and he doesn't really like bragging about it and stuff, whilst Jago loves bragging. And these two characters work off each other just fantastically, that even if they're only in 2 episodes with each other, they make such a massive impact, and you can clearly see why they've got a spin-off series. Will I be tackling a spin-off series? Wait to find out. So the story continues, and it gets much and much tougher for Greel, as one of his kidnapped victims, Leela, replaces her with herself, and when she goes into the basement, she tries to kill him but fails and leaves through the tunnel, and slowly he gets fed up of Chiang to the point where he gets murdered. He murders Chan for being... Well, Chan tries to escape through the rat sewer, and he gets attacked by the rat, believing him to be dead. And then the story kind of shifts a bit from Chan being like the main villain to Greel, as the Doctor learns about his backstory and about this whole time travel and stuff. Lightfoot has the cabinet that he time travelled in, and he wants that back so he can try and travel again. But the Doctor mentions that it's a very dangerous procedure and it could blow up in everybody's faces. And the story kind of shifts through there, and the Greel aspect is just really great. The actor has a bit of a tantrum, but in this story where he's supposed to be a trapped person from the future in the past, I think it actually really works here. It gives him a little bit more sympathy than a majority of other Doctor Who villains. If this betrayal was for a different monster, you could just say he's whining, he's having a tantrum. But here it actually really works, him having a sort of tantrum. But when Chiang is believed to be dead, The story also gives us a bit more detail on Mr. Sin. Now, throughout this story and the Talons of Greel, he's just some sort of like henchman, just a little puppet thing, and we could believe that maybe it's a robot that Greel created. However, they give a lot more backstory to this than what you would imagine. They explain that he was actually a gift from the Peking Emperor in the year 5000, and he was actually originally a pig that was augmented and was only left with a part of the pig, which I can't remember what it was. But because of it, it has a untreatable thirst for the hatred of humans. It just hates humans, and it just, yeah. There's even a scene in which Greel shouts at Mr. Sin because he's having a tantrum. He's just sticking up in the corner because Greel won't let him attack a few humans. And the Doctor also explains this one character, Mr. Sin, his very creation almost created World War VI. How is that not funny? It's a henchman character. You think, you go, right, it's just a henchman. It's a really cool henchman. But they give him such a massive backstory to say that he's almost started World War VI. Why are we not talking about this? This seems to be an element that a lot of people just walk past. And the story does it as well. It only gets like a brief mention. But my God, why? It's just funny. And so Jago, the Doctor, Leela gets kidnapped as the Doctor has the key for the cabinet, which I was enjoying Leela's a lot throughout this story, but to see her kidnapped, she gets kidnapped twice in a row, which kind of lets the story down, especially how she's supposed to be a warrior character. She's supposed to be the one who can defend herself. And it works really well because throughout the story, because there's a scene in which she gets herself kidnapped on purpose just so she can attack Greel. And I think that bit really works. But for some reason down the end, she gets kidnapped twice, and it is kind of bugs me, but not enough that it ruins my my love for this character in this particular story. And so the Doctor, Jago, and Lightfoot all team up to try and take down Greel. And Mr. Sin is basically like on a turret, shooting lasers out of a dragon statue's eye. It makes sense in the story, trust me. And he's just shooting people, trying to shoot the Doctor and stuff. And when Greel's henchmen come in, Mr. Sin's hatred for humanity is so uncontrollable that he just starts shooting Greel's henchmen, and which lets the Doctor get an upper hand, and he attacks Greel and shoves him onto his own regenerative machine, killing him. And yeah, that's a pretty good ending to the 6-part finale. And yeah, something else I wanted to point out before I end this video is that, did you know that originally Greel was supposed to be the Master? Yeah, the twist is that he was going to be the Master, but the Doctor, not Doctor, Philip Hinchcliffe believed that that having the Master be revealed twice in the same season would have been a bit redundant, so they changed it. And a lot of the elements in the story could actually be a shadow of that. We have a disfigured, because the Master was disfigured in the previous Master story. He tries to get his hands on the cabinet, which was believed to be his TARDIS. And when he kidnaps some of the girls, he threatens Leela, that she will help him regenerate, implying Yeah, so that's the implication. So there you go. And that's the Talons of Weng-Chiang. Overall, it's a fantastic story. It's brilliantly written by Robert Holmes. It's brilliantly directed by David Maloney. It's brilliantly produced by Philip Hinchcliffe. But there's a massive elephant in the room with the racial slurs, and you can't justify that. You just cannot. You can enjoy the rest of the story. You can acknowledge that it's a great story. Like I'm telling you now, it is one of the best Doctor Who stories. You know, I am saying to you, it is a great story. But you can't acknowledge that and go, this is also part of what makes it great. The racial stuff, you've got to address. You've got to have that in mind, that this isn't a good element of the story. And yeah, just keep in mind that this story is very outdated. It hasn't aged well in terms of that aspect. So there you go. That's the Talons of Greel and the Talons of Weng-Chiang. So join me next time where we see Jago and Lightfoot. Yes, we are tackling the spin-off. So join me next time where they will be fighting somebody turning into a werewolf. So join me next time for The Bloodless Soldier. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.